Hey guys, how are you? Hi Eco Jenny. Hey guys, welcome. Hi Warrior Ariana. Hey Brooke. Hi Bleemy. Hi Anastasia. Okay, and RCP Story joined. Great. So today we are, let me just get RCP Story on.
What's going on,
Hi
bro?
guys.
Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good
So nice to see you
Good to
guys.
finally see you again.
I know, right? God, it took coronavirus and quarantine for us to get this done, right?
Pretty crazy.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Really excited to see you guys. How have you been?
Doing well. Busy days,
We're
that's
really
for
good.
sure.
Thank God. Spent the day with the animals today, so it was a good day.
I saw
That's
that
exciting.
post. That was super cool. I'm surprised they let you stand on that thing with the snakes.
It's like double-sided glass, and it's meant to be walked on. It's really, really cool.
That's super cool.
Next time you come out here, we'll take you there.
We also did a bat cave on top of a bat cave. That was exciting as well.
Oh wow.
But
That's
the snake
really
one
cool.
was just more dynamic, more interesting.
Wow. How far is that from your house?
3 minutes?
It's amazing, and we have
It's
the whole
in
thing to
Takar?
ourselves.
It's not. It's right outside. You know, Herodian. So we went
Yeah.
there. We came out here for the intensive. So instead of like turning right by Herodian, you make the right before Herodian, and it's about a minute from there.
Wow. Very cool.
It's cool.
It's incredible.
And the best
Nice.
part is that it's been closed now, but it opened now only for children, for families of children with special needs. Just to like give us some outlet, something to do. So usually when we go there, there's 20, 30, 50 kids right in places a zoo, literally. There was like 5 other people there. So
Wow.
Yakir
That's amazing.
and Emuna really had a great opportunity just to play and interact and do therapy on top of snakes and
Yeah, that
all
was
sorts
really
of fun
cool.
stuff.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I'm glad you guys have
loves
this.
animals so much. He thinks like ants and snakes and spiders are cute. He like we picked up a snake to his face and he's like, "Ooh, she's so cute." It's like, it's not cute.
It is cute. It is cute.
Very cute. Well, guys, I just wanted to thank you for joining me today, and
Of course.
I just want to introduce what we're doing today. So our journey together goes back a little while, and of course, your journey with Yakir goes way further back than that. And I'm really excited that you guys are joining me today. For everybody joining us today, this is Yehuda and Tanya, and they are the most wonderful parents of one of my favorite guys in the world, Yakir. And
The feeling is mutual. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so excited to have you guys join so that we could discuss some of Yakir's history, some of his journey in physical therapy, and where he's at today. And of course, we'll throw in a little conversation about sourdough at the end.
Of course.
Okay,
After
so
all, this is where it all began.
it is where it all began, back in Efrat at Pat B'Melech, and we're very excited. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Okay, we're gonna get there. So why don't you guys share some of Yakir's history? Start, when you guys, when you delivered, and some of the medical stuff leading up to what's going on today.
Okay, great. So I'll start. So Yakir, I'm gonna call him Yakir Shlomo, even though on his profile we call him Yakir. So Yakir Shlomo was born at 36 weeks, which is premature, but not so premature. It's about a month early, and I had a spontaneous home birth with him. It was really, really fast. He showed up really quickly.
Fun night.
Did you have any contractions leading up to that?
My whole labor, my whole active labor, including the birth in total, was about an hour and a half long.
Wow.
Which was pretty miraculous. It was really beautiful, thank God. as soon as he was born, he was, you know, pink and beautiful, and he cried right away and nursed right away, and it seemed like there was nothing to be concerned about. His what was that?
The APGAR score.
That his APGAR score was normal. Everything just seemed so normal, like, and so perfect. That instead of making a decision to go to the hospital, we decided to stay home, and we had doctors come to the house and check the baby. We took him to Chalav, which is like
the baby doctor.
The baby doctor, early intervention, I guess here. I don't know.
Pediatrician.
Yeah.
Pediatrician.
Yeah. Okay.
We forget our English.
It's been a while.
We got he had all his, you know, all the tests that they do in the hospital. We had it all done there, and everything seemed so normal and so regular, and we just felt like it was just such a blessing. And after that, every time he had to go for like a vaccine, when they looked at him, they always calculated his birthday as a month early. So when he was 2 months old, they looked at him developmentally as a 1 month old. So when he was developing a little slower than any other child, they weren't so concerned.
It wasn't alarming,
especially
right?
since my daughter was also born a month early, and everything was fine. So then at about 5 months, I was actually at my sister's house, and she was holding him, and she looked at me and she said, "I don't want you to freak out, but I think that Yakir has a little bit of low muscle tone. It's a normal thing. A lot of babies have it, and you probably just need a few sessions of PT, and he'll catch up." So I obviously got really scared. I had no idea what that means, and I took him right away I took him to the pediatrician, and I got a prescription for some PT. After that, we were doing PT once a week for about a month, and we saw and I was doing it at home every day, and I was working really hard, and there was no difference. He had no head control. He was only able to kind of to turn from his stomach to his back, which was more of like a reflex, like he kind of plopped over.
Like gravity.
It wasn't controlled.
Okay.
He also had extreme reflex, and he was throwing up a lot. He couldn't hold his food down.
Did the reflux also contribute to you not being able to put him on his belly for tummy time?
No, he actually never really had a problem with tummy time, especially since he loved sleeping on his tummy. So I think it was actually soothing for him to be on his tummy, but then he would like plop over and want to go back.
Okay.
Yeah, so then after that, we decided to, after about a month, when we realized there was no progress, we started the process of evaluating him, like through early intervention, which is called Hitpatchut Hayiled here in Israel.
And he was how old at that point?
He was about 6.5, 7 months old.
Yeah.
Okay.
We took him to the neurologist there. First, we started more intensive PT. We went to 3 times a week. I was driving him every day back and forth, and then we started.
It was about a half hour each way. So I mean, it was literally with having another kid in nursery and driving. It really became like a full-time thing of back and forth, just fighting to try to get even the smallest amount of therapies.
Yeah, and then thank God it was free, which was really nice. It was unlimited at the time, and
wow,
and free, which is something nice that they have here.
Sure.
So then we had an appointment, our first appointment with a neurologist, which he referred us to. He gave us like a huge list. Oh, right. We switched neurologists in the middle. She gave us a huge list of tests to do. Every kind of possible blood test and mineral test and vitamin test and metabolic test and genetic test, every kind of test you could probably you can imagine. She gave us prescriptions for, and also because he was still small, she referred us for a brain ultrasound, which is something, if the baby's young enough, they can do that instead of an MRI because they still have the soft spot on the top of their head. So we did that, and we did all those tests, and we did the ultrasound. Now in Israel, because it's socialized medicine, so everything takes a long time, and for every different test you have to go to a different hospital, and you're running around from wing to wing to wing. So it was like the whole process was really overwhelming for everyone, including Yakir. And then after everything came back normal, he got an MRI, which came out normal too. So one thing that they called him for many, many months, and still sometimes do, is the mystery child, because he every part of his body has been checked.
And what's so interesting is that up to this point where you're finally getting to the neurological aspect of things and nothing seems to be problematic. The scans are clean, the ultrasound is clean, and yet you have a child who has very significant delays.
Well, it goes even further. I mean, fast forward a few months, we did the MRI. I mean, that came up clean as well. Everything we've done until this point, genetics, blood, everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely really, it has been like a really interesting journey since we know we have a child with what they call cerebral palsy. We know that he has severe delays. He cannot sit on his own yet. He can't walk. He can't crawl. I mean, he can crawl on his stomach. He can crawl
Commando crawling. Yep.
Yeah, commando crawling.
Soldier.
He can't go onto all fours, and he's 3 years old. So there's definitely something wrong. They just haven't found what it is yet. After about almost 2 years of just research, we also had come to the States a few times for testing. We did two different genetic tests when we were in America, which also came back clear. And after a long time of just being so overwhelmed from just searching for a diagnosis and searching for what's wrong, we kind of came to terms with it, that we have to just kind of look at his symptoms and just treat him and give him the best possible life that we can give him. Which is where you come in.
Yeah. So before we get to that, what's really interesting is that here in America, one of the diagnoses that I'm seeing a little more frequently is congenital cerebral palsy, which is very interesting because usually cerebral palsy, the diagnosis is predicated, or the way they make the diagnosis is based on a neurological insult or neurological injury. And here, like Yakir's case, he would fit the bill of what would be known as congenital cerebral palsy, where he was just born with the problem. There was no real neurological insult. His MRI is clean. His ultrasound is clean. Any scans that they've done are clean. His genetics are clean. Everything is clean. And yet he has all the symptoms of cerebral palsy. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not making the diagnosis. But for him to have that diagnosis of cerebral palsy is so interesting because it goes against what we would normally see as a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. But obviously, those are the symptoms that he's exhibiting.
I mean, look, but at the same time, you say you're not a doctor, and obviously our families have a lot of history, and we'll get to that. I mean, my sister and your daughter are best friends. That's kind of how we found each other. But in that initial phone call, when I first called you, and this kind of goes back to what Tanya was saying, on one of these trips to New York, where we were kind of, we've done every sort of physical, this, that, and we were kind of looking at this trip to New York as kind of a little bit of a break, a little bit of like, let's just be normal for a few days, a few weeks. And we realized very quickly that Yakir was just getting worse. He was regressing. He wasn't even staying the same. He was regressing without therapy. And we're like, just another physical therapist that's going to do the same, same things with the this and the that and the balls and the this and the holding. And we're not getting anywhere here. And my sister kept saying, you must. Yuck. my friend told me, I called you, and we obviously took that leap of faith, and here we are today. But in that first conversation that you and I had when we were discussing Yakir and everything, you said, look, Judah, I know you for a long time, and I don't want you to be scared. They're most probably going to diagnose him with cerebral palsy, and I want to explain to you what that is. So you were the first person. You're not a doctor, obviously, but you see a lot of children. You were Tanya has heard it before that. You were the first person who said it to me and kind of spent that time on an initial, maybe we'll see each other phone call, maybe we won't, and kind of walked me through what that might be,
Right.
And that's when we took that and said, let's take a session and see what happens.
Yeah. I just want to say one more thing regarding the the term, like that, the label CP, cerebral palsy. When I was bringing Yakir to early intervention and like all these physical therapy sessions, and every day there was a new kind of therapist who would come in and join and observe, because he was such a mystery and he was so smart and motivated, and the one thing they always used to tell me was his will is going to change, his self-will and determination is going to say, like they used to say it in Hebrew, they would say "Aratzon shelo olech latzilo et hachaim," which is,
it's going to save his life.
His determination is going to save his life.
Right.
And people used to just come in and observe. Like we would have students
would
come in and observe him because it was so interesting to them. And I've had like times where I would sit in these sessions and they would call in the neurologist to observe something that he was doing, and the orthopedist, and there would be like a whole staff sitting and observing him and talking about him. And I was not familiar at all with any form of disability at the time.
Right.
And I've heard the word like CP come up so many times in conversation, and like I said earlier, it sounded like a deadly disease to me. Like I had no idea what it was.
It was scary.
It was really, really scary, and I feel like that's something that like parents who I've spoken to can relate a lot in the early stages of any kind of diagnosis of any disability. Is that fear of hearing the doctors and the therapists discussing these terms that we don't understand until we start doing our own research and educating ourselves.
And like, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but like, that's the whole reason why, I mean, when Tanya first heard this word CP, and when you first told me this word CP and whatever, and we started doing research, and we started looking and doing and finding, and we came across so many different Instagram accounts and blogs and Facebook and YouTube channels and all these different things that we began following, right? We began looking at them. We began seeing the similarities, seeing the differences, asking questions. We would see things on Instagram, say maybe, and then call someone like you and be like, hey, Jake, what do you think about this for Yakir, right, or his neurologist or someone? And that's really the reason why we decided to start our CP story at all. Like, in general, we're not big posters of things, but we felt like it was important because there's this stigma and this fear, and we were paralyzed from fear. And here's a way of saying, look, it's okay. Like progress, it's a process. I mean, there's progress, there's ups and downs, but that's life. And
right.
It's better to jump in and move forward than to stay paralyzed.
Right.
And so we've got a lot of that safety on social media.
Sure. So besides the before we jump into like our journey with physical therapy and how I got to work with Yakir, I want to first ask you guys emotionally, how did you deal with the diagnosis, and what advice could you offer to parents who might be struggling with a new diagnosis or with something that might seem scary to them? Is there any experience or hope that you could share with them?
So when we received the diagnosis, it was, so for those of you who are familiar with Israel, it's one of the greatest countries, it is the greatest country in the world. And we love it here, and we wish we can never, ever, ever leave this place. But the one thing that we do have here is something called socialized medicine. And it means that everything is free, which is incredible. But because everything is free, everything takes a really, really, really long time. So
A lot of red
it
tape,
took
right?
us.
Insane.
So yeah, so it took us about 2 years to get a little less than 2 years, about a year and a half after being denied once, to get disability for our child, for our son, for Yakir.
Twice we were denied.
No, we were denied once, and the second time we were given. It took like two
Applications.
applications. So after the first time that we were denied, which didn't make so much sense to us, but that's just the way it is. We started the process again, and we were told that with a diagnosis, it's much easier.
Basically, we submitted the application with all of his letters from the neurologists and everyone saying that there's a disability, but at the bottom line where it says diagnosis, there was a blank line next to it.
Yeah.
They could, because they hadn't yet diagnosed him.
Because of that, they ignored everything and said, no,
So
he's
crazy.
fine. You're not getting any disability.
Yeah.
So
then-
crazy.
That's what they told us with a diagnosis.
Right. So then we were told by his different caregivers and doctors. So we basically made an appointment with his neurologist, who we switched in the middle. We started with one neurologist and we switched to a different one. And we made an appointment and we walked in there and said, we know that his symptoms are cerebral palsy symptoms.
You know
this.
Right.
But the tests don't say so, and the MRI doesn't say so. We need to get disability for him so that we can continue giving him what he needs and getting him the therapies and getting him into a special needs program. And can you please just give him a diagnosis? And then and there he said, I am diagnosing your son with CP.
Wow. And keep in mind, before this, because of the socialized medicine, we were getting the PT and the OT and the speech as much as we were able to get for him. But he wasn't in any sort of program. There was no sort of structure to what was happening. We had to make all the appointments, figure everything out, and connect between all the different therapists and carry people. There was no connected system of care that was happening. And Tanya would drive him a half hour, 40 minutes each way to every appointment.
Right. Every day of the week, basically.
Right.
So when we personally, when we got this diagnosis, I was relieved for many reasons. First of all, to receive disability. It also gave me this safe place to say, now we're going to start treating his symptoms instead of going on this endless search for why is this happening?
For the answers, right.
Why are his muscles not working properly? Why isn't he developing properly? Like,
Let's just deal with symptoms.
Instead of constantly being on the search of why, and how, we were able to have this menuchat nefesh, like this calm, this serenity, where we were able to say, like, now we can just focus on what he needs, on all that, on what it is that we can give him to help him have the best life that he can.
Right. So that diagnosis and that label actually helped propel you to the next levels for you guys. So instead of it being scary, it actually helped you a lot more than it hurt you, right?
Yes and no. Yes, it definitely helped us, but no, it's also holding us back.
In what way?
Because it's socialized medicine. Before you have a diagnosis, it's more difficult, but they're willing to try everything.
I gotcha.
Once you receive a diagnosis, this is what's included in this diagnosis, and this is what you have. So whereas we were getting 3 times a week physical, occupational, and twice a week speech, right? Or something like that, we are now getting a maximum of 2, 2, and 2.
Wow.
So we lost 1 physical, 1 occupational because we got a diagnosis.
Wow. Wow, that's a real challenge.
Yeah,
but without the diagnosis, we never would have gotten labeled for disability.
Right.
So it's like, what are you supposed to do?
Right. So another thing that I'd like to share with parents who are watching, another reason why it was a huge relief was definitely socially. It was definitely, which I'm sure a lot of you.
You guys there for a minute.
All good?
You there?
Yeah, sorry, I got a call.
That's okay.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
So another thing that I can that 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 I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to is that socially it's really really difficult. It's difficult with it's difficult having, for me it was difficult having the feeling that like I need to explain my child when I introduce him to someone or when someone asks me about him, instead of just saying,
Right.
this is so and so. It doesn't matter what he is or what he looks like. He just is. Like, this is, you know, this is Yakir, and he's a happy little boy. I had this feeling where I constantly had to justify, like, why he's not as developed as your child, or why he's not
Different. Why he's different.
Why he's different, exactly. And it didn't completely change that once he had his diagnosis, but it definitely gave me the space for, like, when people asked questions, I was able to just say, he has CP.
Right.
That's it. And then, like, move on. And then sometimes people would be like, oh, okay. Or sometimes people would be like, oh, poor thing. And I'm like, no, he's actually the greatest, happiest, most adventurous, strong-willed person on this planet. And you do not have to feel bad for him.
And he does therapy with snakes.
And he does snake therapy.
Yeah. You guys have been so awesome in raising him with such a beautiful attitude of, this is our child and this is who he is, and we're going to focus on the positivity and see him for who, you know, his beautiful personality and his fun sense of humor and his kookiness and all the great things that make Yakir Shlomo who he is. And I really want to commend you, because you guys as parents have just knocked it out of the park. It's been really, really beautiful watching you as parents in the couple of years that I've known you, you know, in this capacity. So you guys are really an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to everybody else who knows you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's definitely likewise.
It's mutual.
Thank you.
It's mutual.
Thank you. Let's switch gears for a second and talk about his therapies in Israel and leading up to the therapy that we've done together and the intensive and everything like that. So tell me about, like, when he was doing therapy in Gan and when he was doing therapy that you were going to privately, and then leading up to how you started out in CME.
Okay, so do you want to take it? So for about a year, or a year and 2-3 months, I was taking him for therapies, three to four times a week to therapies, and then there was doctor's appointments in between. The therapies were great. I didn't know anything else. I have never ever had any kind of interaction with a physical therapist unless it was like hi on the street. So it was completely new to me. I thought they were like angels. I thought they were amazing. And till today, I think they're really, really did a great job for what he needed at the time. We worked really, really hard, but as hard as we worked and as hard as they worked, which they really did, and they put so much energy into him, there was no progress. Like, I was taking him every day and doing these exercises with him every day, and there was absolutely like nothing. Maybe
Right.
if there was, it was like barely visible.
I feel like most was like occupational type.
Right. It was very easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like
it was
good?
very, no, I'm good. It was very easy to do occupational therapy with him because he loves playing. So
Right.
he really likes working on his fine motor skills and all that stuff. His bigger muscles are what really challenge him.
Right. So one of the big problems that Yakir has is that he has dystonia, which means that his tone is mixed. And what the problem for PT or for gross motor development when you have dystonia is that your body is very unpredictable with its movements. So you could be totally standing up fine, and then suddenly the tone will kick in, either high tone, low tone, and then suddenly he either collapses to the floor, or he has or he hyperextends, and that's a really big challenge. So how did CME change the whole story for you guys when we started doing Cuevas Medek exercises?
So, I mean, I can tell you personally, I'm going back now, whatever it was, 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years since we first started working together. And obviously since that time, we've made multiple trips to the States, and you've made one trip here for an intensive as well, sourdough bread. You know, the first session that we had together, I remember it, I have videos of it, I have pictures of it. The first session that we had together was the first time we ever saw him supported sit by himself. I remember you picked your hands up and she almost fainted. Like,
yeah.
She thought he was going to fall, but he was sitting and he was doing it. And from that point on, we were hooked, meaning not from like we think this is a miracle therapy that's going to solve all of his problems, but for the first time we saw something that was showing some results, some progress. And I could even say that in the whatever weeks we were there, 2-3 weeks, whatever that first thing was, and it was only halftime with you, and then we switched in the middle to somebody else because you had an intensive in Hong Kong, I believe it was.
Right, I went off to Hong Kong, right.
Right. So in the amount of time that was, we saw more progress those 2-3 weeks than we did in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months prior. And we finally found something that we felt was working. And obviously we kept coming back and forth, and, you know, we came every summer and sometimes here and with Yakir to do therapy, and you came here. But even just seeing and understanding, because you did a great job at explaining to us the way CME works, the philosophy behind it. We were able to come back here and say to the therapist, say, you guys ever heard of this thing called CME? I know you're not certified and you don't know how to do it, but this is like the headspace we want to be in when working with Yakir. Don't do these like ball exercises with him. Like that's not what we want to do, which are also great. He's our kid. We like being challenged. He likes being challenged. He needs to be challenged.
Right.
Right.
And one of the things that I really appreciated when I ended up coming out over Christmas break, following that first summer that we worked together, and I came out to do an intensive, one of the things I really appreciated is that I was able to go to his GAN, his play group, and the whole staff met me, the supervisors, the PT, and we all worked together, and I kind of showed them the direction I was coming from with CME, and they were super receptive to it. I always appreciated that, and you have a wonderful team there, and the fact that they were open to new things, especially to a method that doesn't have a lot of traction in Israel. There's only a couple of practitioners, and the handling is extremely different from traditional therapies. I always really appreciated the fact that they were open to it and that they were willing to implement some of those strategies to help Yakir throughout his day.
Of course. And, you know, the GAN is amazing. His school is amazing. The program he's in is amazing. Again, this was one of the benefits of getting the diagnosis that we got him into this program. So the program is amazing. The therapists and the team there, like, they're the really biggest hearts in the world. And on top of that, they work really hard, meaning they let you come into the GAN, not because it was allowed, but because they have big hearts and they care about Yakir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's not a single thing wrong with they're all amazing.
Yeah.
What we're frustrated about in general of being in Israel is the way that, like I said before, the basket that he fell into, and the limitations we now have on what we can provide to him without fighting and paying and running and challenging, and it just got too much. The craziest thing about it, we spoke to someone who has a child who I believe was autistic, who gets more physical therapy than Yakir does, and he has no physical disability. Just because according to the government, someone with that diagnosis gets this, and someone with this diagnosis gets this.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it's not personalized,
There's nothing behind it.
Right.
I think that at the end of the day with CME,
your mom said Yakir and his family are amazing.
Barbara's my mom.
Nice. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Mom.
And welcome to all the people that joined us. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to this story and hearing about all the hope that we have for Yakir Shlomo, and for listening to the whole experience and taking it all in. We really appreciate everybody being here.
And I know I speak for both of us, and for both of us, if anyone has any questions they want to ask or say or do, I mean, whether it's during this live stream or after, we're happy to answer, to talk.
Yeah. So
we're open.
Yes, thank you. So I think that what really attracted us at the end of the day to CME were two things. First of all, like we said before, Yakir Shlomo is a very, very determined child. He loves being challenged. He does not like doing the same thing over and over again. He wants more and more and more. So I think that like CME does that to you. CME is constantly putting him in a situation where it's like Yehuda calls it fight or flight. Like he's either going to crash or he has to fight. So he's always being challenged. And I think that all therapies are great. All physical therapists are great. All occupational therapists and speech therapists, they're all great. But I think that different therapies work for different people. And for us, we kind of, after Yakir has worked in his 3 years of age, he's worked with 7 different physical therapists.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that after 7 different physical therapists, we kind of realized that for him, this is what works. This is what will, God willing, bring him really, really far and help him gain a lot of strength. And we are also very, 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 very blessed to have found you specifically, Jake, because it's not just that you're a great therapist, but it's also that your connection with Yakir is really incredible. You guys have like serious chemistry going on there.
Right.
I mean, just to add to that, it's just like with school or with anything else, right? Not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone functions the same way. So it's not that any of our previous 6 or other 6 physical therapists did anything wrong. They were doing something that for another child could have been what propelled him to the moon. But for Yakir, it wasn't doing it. It wasn't giving him that push that he needed.
Right.
And we found that in CME.
Right. I think one of the things that you're not saying is how active you guys have been with the home exercise program, which really, yes, Tanya, it's you. It's all you. What you've done with the home exercise program has really made a huge change. What parents don't realize, and I always try to explain to people, is there's 168 hours in the week. And if I'm only doing an hour with your child or 45 minutes, what about all that other time? And for the brain to make changes, we need to constantly give it a diet of positive gross motor information. And the home exercise program is what really could propel somebody to greater success. And Tanya, that's all you. I've watched through your Instagram and from our conversations how hard you've worked at home, and especially now in quarantine. It seems like you have a new hobby of doing exercises with your Shlomo.
We don't have a choice.
When we first started working with you, and you gave us this like list that sat on our fridge for like a year, and I got anxiety attacks every time I looked at it. When you first told us what you just said, where like about the hours of the day and how we really need to be doing the work at home, it was definitely something that scared me. I had no idea, and everything you did just seemed so scary to me. And
sometimes
I was like,
still does.
Sometimes it still does.
Kicking and flipping, and there's a fan moving.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely something that seemed extremely, extremely overwhelming for me in the beginning, which I'm sure it seems to a lot of parents when they first, come home from their first, session with a CME therapist, and they're like, okay, so you need to get boxes, and you need to be doing all these different things and all these different exercises that you have no idea how to do. And most of them seem so scary, which Yakir loves because he loves thrill.
He's a daredevil, yeah.
The more time he's upside down, the happier he is, I think.
Yeah.
So it definitely took a very long time until I was able to constantly work with him. In the beginning, after the first summer intensive that we did, it was I didn't do a lot of exercise, and then we saw you again in the winter, and then after that, like I started doing a little more, and it took about a year till I got comfortable with like trying therapies, you know, and being
Right.
more and it not seeming so difficult to do. It's definitely something that I was kind of thrown into this quarantine.
Right. Right.
Which not just me,
The whole
not just
world.
me. Yes, the whole world. All you mamas and papas and caregivers out there, you rock. You're amazing. But the concept of working with him every single day has been something that, like, when we first, you know, when we first went into this lockdown, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to become a physical therapist, a speech therapist, and an occupational therapist now, like right now, today,
Right.
so
Right.
that he doesn't have, so he doesn't regress.
Right.
But this is when I really realized that I'm capable of it.
Amazing.
After watching you and all his therapists for so long, like I never dared to like really jump into it and really do these exercises every day until now. And now it became like a part of our, you know, daily family activities. Like my daughter,
Either right before nap or right after.
yeah, like Emuna, she gets him all excited about it and offers him chocolate chips and pretzels. And you know, he's the photographer for the Instagram content.
Right.
And then I sit there, you know, working with him and trying to like really like imagine me being you and like trying to figure out what I'm actually doing and
Right.
making sure that it's.
We have all those videos you made for us.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely watch the videos a lot and try to correct the exercises.
Right. And what you're saying is really interesting for me, and it's a big lesson for me, because as a therapist, and when I do intensives, when I do exercises, I'm always teaching the parents the exercises, and I make sure that you guys practice it and that you're able to execute it. But I think that what I'm learning from you right now, and this is part of the growth process for me as an individual and as a therapist, is that I might also have to really start to consider the emotional impact that trying to execute a home exercise program might have on the parents. You know, you're telling me that list was sitting on your fridge. We had probably 10, 15 exercises, and it was so intimidating to you and so scary to you that you weren't able to implement it. And I think for me, this is a really big moment of growth, because I know that it's scary for parents, but because I practiced it, I assumed, hey, everybody's going to execute it. But to hear that there was an emotional blockade for you, that you weren't really ready to kind of embrace the whole thing. I mean, to me, that means that I just need to take a little more time and kind of tap into the emotional journey that parents are on. And I really appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
So what gives you guys hope for now and for Yakir's future? What makes you tick every day? What pushes you to get him to the next levels?
Go for it.
His desire, definitely. He, more times throughout the day than we say, we should probably be doing some therapy. And he'll say, walk, 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 sit, 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 outside. He'll tell us and express to us his frustration, that he wants to walk, he wants to be outside, he wants to get there by himself, he wants to sit. He'll express those things to us. So his desire to want to get there definitely motivates us and pushes us. I mean, kind of going back to what I said before about, you know, on social media, when I said, like, we found all these different resources and people and stories, a lot of that as well. And I'm sure some of them are in this room right now, just people that we follow. I mean, literally, I mean, Briella and me, Life with Gotti, these people that we see them, and we see that there's something happens, right? With the continued work, it pays off in the end of the day. It's not something that we're just going to be doing. We might be doing the same thing for forever, maybe. But it gets better at some point. It clicks. And I know it's going to click because he has the desire for it to click. And if he's anything like his father, and if he's anything like his mother, if he wants something, he's going to get it. There's not a question. It might take time, but he will get it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you guys,
for instance, today when I was taking my kids out of the bath, so I wrapped my daughter in the towel, and then she she walked to her room and she thought it was really cool that she made like wet foot marks all the way to her room and the floor was soaking wet.
Very cool.
And then he saw it and I took him out of the bath. I took Yakir out of the bath and I was holding him and I was like, started walking to his room and he's like, no, walk. Like he saw her wetting the floor and
he wanted
like,
the same footprint.
walk
Right.
and make footprints all over the floor.
And he did.
So I was like, okay, let's walk. And I put him down and I held him and we walked to his room, even though it wasn't so easy for him and it wasn't
He was so coordinated. He was soaking wet. He wasn't wearing any shoes or anything. He was like sliding
across the floor. But he did it. He walked because he wanted to.
That's great. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. I just want to thank you for coming on today. I want to also thank you because when I came to do the intensive that we did together, you introduced me to something that I've always been interested in. We went to a sourdough workshop together. And since then, yes, Yuda. And since then, I've gotten really pretty good at baking sourdough, as my waistline will definitely attest to. It's really been a lot of fun learning how to do it, and you guys all started that, and just you guys were such great hosts. We went around, we went out to lunch, and we just ate together, and we celebrated the days together, and we climbed a mountain at Herodium. We saw an ancient castle, and we just had a great time. And I always appreciated that you guys did that for me and just made me feel so welcome. And I wasn't just the help. I was really, we became good friends. And I always appreciated that, the time that we spent together and the feelings that we shared. So I always wanted to thank you and thank you publicly here for that experience.
The feeling's mutual. I mean, it wasn't that we had nothing else going on in our day that week or anything else, but it's gratitude, Someone very wise once told me, gratitude isn't an attitude, it's an action. And if you're grateful for something, you show it. It's not like an attitude. Oh, I'm grateful. I walk around with a cap that says I'm grateful. It's an action.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to also thank you publicly as well, because you have really been our guardian angel in this process. And you've helped Yakir so much, and you've also and you still do. And we are, Yehuda announced this on Facebook to the world, but I will happily announce it now. We are actually moving. It's a really weird time to be moving, but we'll be moving to the States hopefully in the summer to New York for a period of time to see if we can do a 2-year long intensive with Get Your Baby Moving.
Looking forward to that.
So we are just so eternally grateful for you and for everything that you've done for us until now, and your relationship with Yakir is just beyond incredible. He loves you so much.
The feeling is definitely mutual. He's my dude.
And to our family, who really helped us financially and otherwise. They continue to help us. I mean, when we first started seeing you, there's certain family members of ours that really jumped in and helped make this possible. It wasn't an easy thing, but we see the results. We see the benefits of it. So.
I'd definitely like to thank my amazing family, and specifically my in-laws, because they, with our whole journey with Yakir's journey in America, they have been have gone beyond what anybody could possibly imagine, with helping him and helping us navigate the system, and they still do, and we're just
they're very
so grateful. If you guys are watching, we're so eternally grateful for you guys in every possible way.
I just want to thank you guys so much for sharing your story and for really really giving over the emotion of your experience, not just the details of it, but really telling us how it feels as parents to be going through this journey. And I think that's really special. I'm sure there are a lot of people, parents, therapists, caregivers, grandparents, everybody who's watching and who will watch over the course of the next 24 hours now that this will be up on my page, people will be able to share in your experience, and hopefully it will give them hope if they're going through a similar situation, and if not, to at least be empathetic to people who are. I just want to thank you guys so much. I can't wait to see you guys again. And yeah, really looking forward. I hope you guys stay safe and healthy through this coronavirus outbreak. And God willing, we shall all be reunited really soon.
Please God.
Thank you
Amazing.
so much.
All right. Have a great day, guys. Love you.
Have a good one. Yeah, talk soon.
Okay. Be well.
Bye.
Enjoy your
Bye.
day. Thank you so much for joining me.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.